Oh, the wind carries my name.
Wait, no, stop, dude, stop.
Really? Dude? What?
Oh god, no. You're not wearing that mask. It's not happening.
What's wrong with the mask?
Because that thing is the stuff of nightmares, and we want to attract viewers to this channel.
What would you want me to do?
I don't know. Why can't you just do the musical number without the mask? Occam's razor this shit. Problem solved.
Just do it without the... I can't just do Sogeking. You can't do Sniper King without the mask. That's the whole point of being Sniper King. Otherwise, I'm just slingshot blanket messenger bag man. Beware my power! Ooh!
Well, I think you're thinking too much into it, but if you insist, I could beat your face in a few times with this mallet, and you can go as God Usopp. That could be fun.
I'd rather you not.
Huh, okay. Well, third option, I could cut you up with this sword, and then you could go as Usopp from that time he fought.
You know what? Fuck it. It's already gone on too long. People are sitting there wondering where the fuck the discussion is at. Whatever. I guess I bought this slingshot for nothing. Whatever. Shit.
1, 2, sunshine here we go.
Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and I know it's been a little bit of a wait, I apologize, but welcome one and all to my Strawhat discussion series. We're going to be going through the entire crew, it's going to be great, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're kicking it off with a bang in the first episode by talking about God Usopp. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, Matt, if you're starting off with God, doesn't everybody after that just seem kind of like, eh? I'm sorry, though. You have to give respect where respect is due, okay? God Usopp. All right, now, these are going to be laid out a little bit different than the other discussion videos I did, like my Warlord series and my Yonko series. These are the main characters of the fucking story, so, if I sat here and talked about every little thing they've done, these would be like 2-3 hour long videos. I mean, I could do that, I don't have a problem with it, but just for brevity's sake, I'm going to break it down. So we're going to go through first the backstory of the particular character, the personality of such a character, the role they play in the Straw Hat crew, as not just their job, but also other stuff that they're handy that they've done throughout the story, as well as their relationships with the other members of the crew. We're going to gloss over that, as well as then the techniques that they utilize, the battle tactics that they use, if they have a devil fruit or not, and then the battles they've been in, the characters that they've fought against, and how they've grown throughout the story. A lot of this is going to be abridged. I'm probably going to forget 1 or 2 things along the way with each of the Straw Hats, but I hope to gain as much as I can, probably within a 30 to maybe possibly as long as I want, is like 40 minutes, but we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so to start off with Usopp, he is the 3rd or the 4th member to join the Straw Hat crew, however you want to look at it. Nami did not actually officially join the crew until after Arlong Park, so I'm going to say Usopp was the 3rd one to join right after Zoro, to officially join anyway. He was born and raised in Syrup Village. His father is Yasopp, who is currently a member of the Red-Haired Pirates. Shanks appeared on this island about 20-something years ago and picked up Yasopp for him to be the sniper for the red-haired pirates, so he's pretty skilled. As well as that, it seemed to carry over to his son, because Usopp is also a very skilled sniper. His mother was named Banshina, and she actually died of an illness when Usopp was really young, so it kind of sucks for Usopp. He kind of became somewhat of an orphan, living in the town of Syrup Village. Kind of that old adage, takes a village to raise a child, because his dad left him, and his mom died, and, his dad's not dead, but the odds of him coming back, are pretty low. Yasopp kind of abandoned his family, didn't even leave a note to his wife or his son, like, I'm gonna go out to seas and be a pirate, we're gonna pillage and we're gonna rob and we're just gonna live the pirate life, and hey, I might get shot in the head someday, and you might never see me again. Later, wife, later, son, the sea calls me. But Usopp doesn't take this to mean that his dad hated him or anything. He just took it kind of the same way that Gon viewed Jean in Hunter x Hunter. Gon's like, oh, my dad left me to be a hunter. Man, being a hunter must be great. And Usopp's kind of the same thing, like, man, my dad is a brave warrior of the sea. I want to grow up to be a brave warrior of the sea one day. So take that whatever you will. Maybe he's coping with that a little bit, but that's the situation there. So yeah, he grew up in the village, basically living by himself for the most part. He became the captain of the Usopp Pirates, which are just a small-time group of children living in the town that kind of just follow Usopp around. There's 3 little kids that just, that they're named after different vegetables, the veggies. And then you have Kaya, who was the rich girl that lived in town in a mansion. Her parents also died, murdered, but whatever, the same thing. And Usopp became friends with her. They're about the same age, and Usopp basically would go up on this tree next to her house and just, she's usually bedridden, she's very ill, so Usopp would keep her spirits up and, talk to her, and she's pretty much the only other person in town that's like the same age as him, so, I mean, some just your own age thing, and, you don't have to go with the sexual, way to go about it, like, oh man, Usopp totally wants to bone her. I think it's just more about having a friend your own age, having someone to talk to, and Usopp's thing is he loves to lie, he loves to tell tall tales, he loves to, maybe because it's in a similar way, like, you ever feel like your life is boring as shit, so you have to kind of liven it up a little bit, especially when you're a kid growing up in like a boring-ass tiny little mountain village. Don't know anyone that had to live like that, but beyond me, yeah, that's what Usopp did. So I can imagine him, that's the reason why he likes to tell these tall tales, and why he likes to say, I've been on these great adventures, I've fought a giant, and I've defeated this huge giant goldfish that could swallow an entire island, shit like that. So he tells these stories to Kaya, and that gets her spirits up, and it's good, there's like a good friendship there, and that's nice. And he has his other friends, the veggies, and he leads the Usopp Pirates. The village is probably not that too fond of him because he takes it a little bit too far sometimes with his lying. He'll run through the village basically like the boy who cried wolf, being like, pirates are coming, they're gonna kill and burn down the entire village, and everyone gets like, oh shit, and then after the 4th or 5th time, they're like, kind of hate Usopp for doing that. I can understand. Luffy, Nami, and Zoro eventually arrive at the island. You had his introductory arc where you find out that Kuro, Kaya's butler, is the main enemy, and this is the events that lead to Luffy eventually taking out Kuro, and then Usopp joins the crew. Along with that, this is also the arc where we get the Going Merry, and this is why that Usopp has a very strong connection to the Merry, as we're going to see later on in the story. It's Kaya's other butler, Merry. Merry's the one that designed this ship. It's more of a faring vessel for like the higher class. It's not really intended to be a ship that's going to last very long on the Grand Line, but the Straw Hats needed a ship. Merry had a ship, and they got a ship, and Usopp also still feels a strong connection to Kaya, his friend, so he also feels that it's Kaya's ship. It's the one that she gave to us. So, Straw Hats get a ship, and Straw Hats gets Usopp. Usopp's role on the Straw Hats is basically the sniper. He's the marksman. He's the one that if there's ever a time when they have to shoot cannons, not very often do the Straw Hats utilize the cannons on the Going Merry, but if there's ever that time that it comes up, it's Usopp that's the one that fires it. His principal weapon is that of a slingshot and slingshot-based weaponry. I just realized, why doesn't Usopp use a gun? Holy shit! I mean, I guess that's Yasopp's thing. His dad uses a gun, but god damn, Usopp used a gun. That'd be awesome. But whatever. Anyway, we'll get to that later. On top of that, in the earlier stages of the story, when Frankie had yet to be introduced, Frankie became the shipwright, Usopp was essentially the de facto shipwright. He was the one that came close to having any sort of craftsmanship knowledge. With that being said, let's say all the other members of the crew had absolutely no knowledge in this, and Usopp had, like, a couple of hands-on experience. Like, he was a handyman, essentially. He wasn't trained or taught in the art of shipbuilding. He knew nothing about that. He didn't know how to... Even Frankie told him, you don't even know how to use a fucking hammer properly when fixing or repairing a ship. But he's, like, the best they had. He was the best they got. So whenever that Luffy would wreck the ship or that the ship would get damaged, mostly Luffy wrecking the ship. I mean, there was one time when Luffy ripped out the fucking entire mast of their ship to hit a whale with it. Yeah, I know, this series is fucking crazy shit, but, I mean, I'm watching that, and I'm like, Luffy! What the fuck, Luffy? Your whole thing is you want to be king of the pirates, you gotta sail the seas, and the first thing you do after getting to the Grand Line is you horribly maim your ship. Like, what the fuck? Sometimes, I mean, he's forgetful, and he's Luffy, and he does things without thinking sometimes, but, like, what the fuck, Luffy? That is one of those big what the fuck moments with him. Anyway, Usopp tried his best to kind of, like, nail the thing back together. He got these metal sheets to try to nail it back, and he's like, oh, god damn it, Luffy, I'm the only one that's to patch all this shit up. Beyond that, he was also very handy in making things that aren't dealing with shipbuilding. He's good at making. He's a gadgety kind of guy. He's good at making trinkets and gadgets and weapons and shit like that. He's fairly competent in that. He's the one that built Nami's climb attack. The original climb attack was nothing more than just sort of like a party favor thing, but after he got dials from Skypiea, he was able to create a fairly deadly weapon using his own skills. Frankie had yet to be introduced, and he was able to create these things. Well, Frankie was introduced at that point, but he didn't help him. He was still an enemy. So that perfect clean attack that Nami used to fight against Khalifa, that was fairly competently designed, yeah, that was all Usopp, 100%. So he is fairly skilled at that. It's just, most things he's, beyond his league, right? So in terms of his relationships with the other Straw Hats, I'm just going to go down the line here. Okay, so Luffy is a big one because Luffy and Usopp are the same age. And so a lot of times, you ever have a best friend that's like your same age and you just kind of goof off with each other, that's a lot of times that happens with Luffy and Usopp. They're usually seen together whenever they're like fishing on the side of the boat, or they're screwing around, or they're singing a jaunty tale or a song. That's always you, Luffy and Usopp. That shit, Usopp hammer, no. That's usually Usopp and Luffy that do that. Also, funny story with that. A lot of times in the story when Luffy acts out of character, it's usually because of Usopp. Let me tell you what I mean. Remember that time Luffy broke into Boa Hancock's castle and he saw Boa Hancock fucking naked and he didn't even give a shit? Many people question that scene because there was the scene when Luffy saw Nami naked during the Alabasta arc at the end of that when she did her happiness punch thing, and then Luffy was shocked just like every other man. So people question that, like, how come Luffy reacted that way to Nami but not to Boa Hancock? And Oda's explanation for this was like, well, Usopp was there, and so Usopp, Luffy sometimes takes cues from him and acts the same similar ways, like kind of like he's a bad influence on him, sort of, kind of. So yeah, they're good friends. They're good friends, which is a good way, and it even made it more. I guess I'll just talk about this now. I mean, I was gonna save that later for battles, but come the fuck on, I have to talk about this now. Epic, tearful, soulful battle between men. Luffy versus Usopp. So, at this point, the Going Merry, because Usopp wasn't that good at repairing it, was falling apart. And there was no way you could fix it. The keel was damaged. No matter what the best shipwrights even in the world did, they wouldn't be able to fix it. So Luffy had to make an executive decision. He had to make the decision, as the captain, that we're going to give up on the Merry and we're going to buy a new ship. Because he's the captain and he has to make these decisions. Otherwise, they're not even going to get to the next island. Which is a very responsible thing for Luffy. Because the Galila shipwrights were like, Luffy, it's not going to happen. And so Luffy took him a while, but he's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to deal with this. And Usopp was like, fuck no, we're not giving up on the Merry. This is Kaya's ship. It's carried us so far, we're not going to do this. And this resulted in basically them fighting. If Luffy wins, then the ship will be destroyed and they'll get a new ship. And if Usopp wins, then I guess they'll keep it. Or he'll keep the ship anyway. Fighting basically for the rights to own the Going Merry. So the fight was very emotional. You'd think that because Usopp is not that strong, he doesn't have a devil fruit, he doesn't have any kind of inhuman strength, this fight would be a one hit. But, well, it was in a sense, but Usopp knows Luffy, and he knows how he fights. So using his tactics, he was able to deal a decent amount of damage to Luffy. Even to the point where, impact dialing his own Gum Gum Bazooka right in his face. And using other kind of tactics, playing off the fact that he knows how Luffy fights and keeping his distance. But he knew that if he took one hit from Luffy, that was going to be it. And sure enough, eventually Usopp ran out of tricks, ran out of gadgets. Luffy was just a fucking tank. He blew his ass up with gas and fire, hitting him with all these spikes and shit. Launching every single every type of bullet he had, every sort of type of, Usopp special attack he had in his arsenal. And Luffy was just way too fucking durable. One Gumu Gumu no bullet hits him right in the fucking stomach and he drops. And so, out of pity though, Luffy does give him the Going Merry, so they pack up their shit and the Straw Hats leave, and Usopp's left battered and broken. He left the crew, he's no longer part of the Straw Hats, and he lost his friends. Kept the Going Merry. Eventually this led to him meeting Frankie and him getting tied up and rescuing Robin, which led to the introduction of Sniper King! From Sniper Island, far away, where dreams come true. It's in your heart, Sniper Island. And eventually saved Robin, played a little bit of a role in the Enies Lobby arc, not as much as I would have liked, but burned down the government flag, which is a huge, big deal there. Probably adhered to a lot why his bounty rose to 30 million after this. And helped Zoro out against the battle with Kaku and Jabra. Not really helped out, but there was pretty funny scenes there where he gets attached to his, becomes the sword for Zoro to use. That's pretty crazy. And he's the one that eventually helps free Robin. Shooting the keys so Frankie can unlock her cuff. So he does play a critical role there. But yeah, so that's the situation there, and eventually he has to rejoin the crew, and that's kind of emotional for Usopp because he doesn't know what to do. He wants to say he's sorry, he wants to rejoin the crew, but he doesn't really know how to do it. And so he kind of plays it off as a joke at first, but even Zoro was like, if he does that shit, if he plays it off as just nothing more than a joke, like, haha, guys, whatever, I fought you, whatever, crazy, I know you want me back, we're not taking him back, where Zoro was threatening to leave. So, probably one of the most emotional moments in all of One Piece, where in Volume 45, when Usopp literally just breaks down crying on the shores of Water 7 as the Straw Hats are sailing away in their new ship, and he's just bawling his eyes out. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, please, I was an idiot, I was being disrespectful to the captain, and then Luffy starts bawling his eyes out, and they bring him back, and then everything's hunky-dory. But it was a nice little character arc there that wasn't, it lasted a while, and it wasn't solved. I mean, it was solved rather quickly, but Usopp really had to swallow his pride there and understand what he did. It's not as simple as just like, yeah, he did just join the crew because he wanted to, but he had to swallow it. He couldn't get out of it by lying. He had to admit that he was wrong, that he fucked up, and that he accepts Luffy as his captain, which is I think a big moment for Usopp's character there. Okay, that's just his relationship with Luffy. I told you these episodes were going to be long. Alright, relationship with Zoro, not too much with that. We don't get too much with them. As I said, in the Enies Lobby arc, you had the funny scene where Usopp had to join up with the Yubashiri sword so that he could become like the long-nosed flame sword, or whatever that Zoro called it. So they've had a few interactions there, not very many though. Zoro usually ends up getting annoyed by him and Luffy's antics. His relationship with Nami, that one's kind of interesting. So I think the two of them actually shared somewhat of a connection because they were seen as two of the weaker members of the Straw Hat crew. And so they're usually shown as like that weak trio, with Chopper included in there. But I think Chopper can't even really be included as the weak trio anymore because Chopper has, Devil Fruit power, which gives him a little bit of a boost there, and he has mastered fucking Monster Point, and we've seen all the shit that can do. So I don't think it's really considered a trio anymore. But Nami and Usopp don't have superhuman strength. They do not have Devil Fruit abilities. And so they're seen as the weaker ones. So there's a little bit of a connection between them there. And Nami comes to Usopp before the Alabasta arc and was like, hey, Usopp, I need a way to fight. At least you have a fucking slingshot. I need a way to figure out how to fight here. And so Usopp understands where she's coming from, and he makes her the original climb attack, which was, like I said, more just a party favor thing. But it was still something that he understood, like, I understand where you're coming from, Nami. I've been there too. I'll make you a weapon, and it's going to be an awesome weapon, because I'm Usopp. And so they've had a little bit there. After the time skip, when Usopp appeared, she shows up in that bar. Nami's already in this bar, and they hug, and they're like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in 2 years. And there's this scene with, my god, what? Let's play a little game, kids. What does this look like? Yeah, okay, all right. I think we're all getting there. I think we all know what that's indicating there. I don't know. I feel like there's something there between them. Many people ship Nami and Luffy for whatever reason. I'm seeing some more Usopp Nami thing here, if anything, that Oda's throwing our way, but that's just me. Later on, a big moment between him and Nami was at the end of Punk Hazard, when you had Buffalo and Baby 5 getting away. And it was funny because Usopp and Nami were like, if the enemy is to our back, it has its back to us and is trying to escape, then we can totally fight them. So it's like, yeah, we have no problem about being badasses when the enemy is already beaten and flying away in the opposite direction. Let's go kick their asses, Usopp. Damn straight, Nami. So that was a cool moment there with them together. So yeah, that was interesting. His relationship with Sanji. Not too much with Sanji. I don't see a lot of moments there with Usopp and Sanji. There was one scene actually in the one of the filler arcs, the Ice Hunter arc, where they're together and they have to do this thing where Usopp has to stand on because it's ice, so Sanji can't get a foothold. So Usopp has to, sit down, and Sanji does like this turret attack. That was kind of interesting, but don't think there's really a lot of discussions with them all that much. I'm like I said, I'm probably it's a big ass story, guys. I'm probably forgetting something. I'm seeming to remember that at one point Sanji gave sort of an inspirational speech to Usopp, but I cannot remember the particulars or where it was at in the story. His relationship with Chopper, once again, because Nami and him were part of that weak trio, there seemed to be a relationship there a little bit. Usopp and Chopper fought against Mr. Four and Mrs. Merry Christmas during the Alabasta arc, so they have some teamwork working together there, and they seem to get teamed up a few times in fights, since Usopp is weak and he almost always gets beaten the shit out of by the main enemy, even if he wins. Like, he wins against Mr. Four and Mrs. Merry Christmas, but he's beaten to shit. He has like a fucking skull fracture, his nose is broken, pretty much every bone in his body. He was thrown through rubble a shit ton of times. A whole ruin collapses on him and he manages to get out of that. So Chopper's the one that patches them all up. I'm sure Usopp is probably the most common patient aboard the Straw Hat crew, although I guess that means Usopp is pretty damn durable. If he can get, hit by a 4-ton bat and get, crushed by giant rubble and ruins all the time, I mean, it's pretty good. Pretty sure you get a skull fracture and you die there, like hemorrhage, whatever. Relationship with Robin, Robin's more of a serious kind of character, right? And Usopp's like the exact opposite of that. Though there are some scenes there where Robin, is very opens up to Usopp a little bit, because Usopp was the one that's trying to rescue her a little bit. And I think there was one scene where Robin thanks him for his trying to do all that stuff. The first time kind of pushes him away when they're on the sea train. But there was this moment where Robin's like, don't rescue me. And Usopp's trying to, keep up the Sogeking kind of persona. But at one point, he's like, don't you understand that Luffy's going to try to save you no matter what? Don't you understand this? Like, he kind of just drops the act, and he's like, you're just being too difficult. And so that was an emotional scene with them. There was also one funny scene where Usopp tries to mimic Robin's face and telling a joke. I thought that was pretty funny. Relationship with Frankie, probably a big one there, because Frankie is the one... first off, that after Usopp left the Straw Hat crew, he kind of gets a relationship with Frankie even before he joins the crew. At first he hates them because, Frankie beat the shit out of him. Frankie, I forgot about that one scene where the Frankie family steals all the money and then Usopp tries to get it back and Frankie beats the fuck out of him. But after that, they seem to be on good terms with each other. After Usopp tells him the story of the going merry, Frankie starts crying his eyes out, takes out his guitar. He's like, oh man, I misjudged you, man. I'm sorry for beating the shit out of you. That was an emotional tale. When Frankie does join the Straw Hats, he serves as the actual shipwright, and he manages to help Usopp out with whatever things he needs, so if Usopp created that new climb attack for Nami, the one that's like a fucking dildo, that she keeps inside of her tits, Frankie helped him build that. Anytime that Usopp maybe has an idea that's a little bit too out there for him, that he can't do it on his own, he'll get Frankie to help him out, who does have good engineering skills. So yeah, that's a good relationship with him and Frankie. And him and Brook and him seem to, team up a few times too, like in Sabaody, they were working together, so they seem to be getting along fairly well. So yeah, there's that there. So that was his relationship with the Straw Hats. As for his techniques, Usopp is a sniper, as I stated. He goes through 3 main weapons throughout the entire series. His first weapon is his standard slingshot, nothing really unique or special about it, although he calls it the Ginga Pachinko, the Galaxy Slingshot, so gotta be cool there. Just a standard slingshot, although the ammo he has for it is very diverse. Standard lead stars, which are just normal pachinko balls, you ever get hit, this thing's a fucking deadly weapon. I can kill a motherfucker with this if I wanted to. I know a lot of people look at fucking slingshots like, what is this, Dennis the Menace shit? Oh, you little kid, you're gonna use slingshots to break a window. Pfft. Protesters use these to break shit. People, you can use these to hurt and kill things. Like, these are dangerous. You know, just when buying this thing at the store, you have to be over 18. There's a whole list of shit not to do, how you could, you know, seriously injure yourself with one of these things. Don't knock the slingshot, okay? It's not a toy. You know, if you, okay, on top of normal pachinko balls, which you get hit with a lead ball pretty fast, it's gonna hurt. You might cause a skull fracture there, but beyond that, he also's got exploding stars, or gunpowder stars, which explode, flaming stars, which erupt in fire. He's got his Tabasco star, which is like super formulated hot sauce that he invented, that, you know, he's perfect, you know, he's dead-eye, dead shot, so, you know, he shoots it right into freaking guy's mouth and just erupts in flames. During his fight with Luffy, he showed a bunch of shit. Like, he had these shuriken shooting stars, like these long strings of shurikens that he attached to his slingshot, and they all fired off at the same time and then broke. A cactus one, which is like a little ball that was filled with like little fucking like senbone needles or whatever, and, you know, shoot that and they explode and scatter everywhere. Rotten eggs, he uses those to shoot out, so basically he shoots and, you know, disable the enemy's sense of smell. Might sound kind of childish and silly, but as Usopp said in his fight with Luffy, Luffy's like, you know, he gets shot with rotten egg, and Luffy's like, oh god, fight seriously, and Usopp's like, this is how I fight. I'm like, hey man, you, like I said, no devil fruit, no hockey. Well, no hockey at that stage in time, and also no superhuman abilities to speak of. I'm not, and you live in a world where people do have all that shit. I'm not gonna knock you. Do whatever you have to, Usopp. Be clever. Be ingenuitive. Be freaking gadgety. Do what you gotta do to win. That's all I care. You know, it's the fucking. You're a pirate, for God's sakes. Come on, Luffy. You know, whatever. On top of just a standard slingshot, though, he's also got a pack he carries around, sort of like a messenger bag sort of thing. Keeps all his extra stuff. He's got, on top of his ammo, he's also got caltrops, you know, so he could throw a bunch of caltrops on the ground. He's got, like, alcohol he keeps in there, so he throws alcohol, douses the opponent with fucking booze, and then lights them on fire with a flaming star, as he did with Chu. He's got his work hammer here, but he does use this as a weapon occasionally. On top of that, he's also, like I said, a bluffer, so he incorporates that a lot into his battle tactics. So, on top of just trying to lie, he'll usually start off a lot of his battles with, I have 8,000 men, or 80 trillion men, or whatever, so to kind of psych out the opponent a little bit. 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work, but hey, at least you're giving it a shot, right? Maybe you'll be in luck. Maybe your opponent will be gullible as fuck, and they'll actually believe you, you know? Other techniques are Usopp's spell, where he'll either take out a chalkboard and screech his nails across it, and that's Usopp noise, and then, you know, people, like, clench their ears there. Usopp's spell is when he shouts out things that are, like, really cringy to get people to kind of like, ooh, no, like 1,000 razor blades scratching against in between your teeth, bleeding your gums, like, oh, God, ooh, I can feel that, ow. Once again, these techniques don't work all that much. Some bluff techniques that Usopp does have, though, that do work, is his hammer techniques, okay? So Usopp will either carry with him, like, a cheaply, like dollar store, you know, hobbled together hammer, like 2 frying pans with, like, a balloon covering it so it looks like a giant hammer, or just a straight-up inflatable hammer that he could just, you know, giant 10-ton hammer, and so that'll psych out the opponent into making them think, oh shit, this guy's super strong, and he's got a giant hammer he's gonna hit me with mixed success. It worked for a little bit on Mr. 4 before they found out the weakness, before he was lying, and this was actually how he took out Perona. He shot Perona's body with a sticky star to keep her, and then a special star that had, he calls his techniques stars, he's not actually shooting stars, a special ammo that is filled with robotic toy roaches, so, you know, she was, you know, oh god, I'm covered in roaches and I can't move, and then he breaks out the giant hammer that's inflatable, but Perona is so freaking traumatized at this point, she's like, oh no, god, no, please, no, and, you know, so, Usopp, you know, if the opponent sees through this shit, he would lose, no question, you know, so there's no way he could take on a serious threat like Arlong or, like Lucci, like he would die, there's no way that these things would work on them, but he might manage to at least get away, to escape. His smoke star, his smoke screen, another tactic, but in terms of a straight-up fight, there's no way he would be able to win against, like, a Logia Devil Fruit user or something like that, like Crocodile or Eneru. He did stand up to Eneru and Kizaru, though, at 2 times in the series, which was pretty boss. times where he decides to man up, and he's usually a coward. When they approach the island, Usopp's always like, he's like, oh, I have my fear of island syndrome, which, by the way, Usopp, I feel like you should get over that at this point. I understand that's part of his character, and at the beginning of the series that made sense, but after the time skip, after he apparently manned up, he lived 2 years on an island where literally every plant wanted to kill you. Everything on that island wanted to eat you. And you grew up in that environment for 2 years, and still after 2 years, you're like, we're going to a new island with monsters. Oh, Luffy, I don't think so. Come on, Usopp, you can man up a little bit. You don't have to be doing that shit anymore. But, yeah, there are times where he does man up and then, will stand up against opponents that he has no chance of winning, like Eneru and Kizaru. He was, after Zoro was taken away by Kuma, and then, Kizaru's there, he's shooting shots at Kuma, shooting shots at Kizaru, even though they're not working, he's standing his ground, he's not leaving his friends behind, and that is Usopp. So Usopp's next weapon that he gets, is after he ventures on Skypiea, after he deals with Eneru and all that shit, after he gets electrocuted by him, he survives. The dials in Skypiea are very useful to him because they're things that, allow access to electricity and heat and wind, stuff that he doesn't have, and he combines that with his new slingshot to create the Kabuto, which is a long-standing slingshot that he uses throughout Eni's Lobby and Thriller Bark and Sabaody. It's his main weapon up till the time skip, which adds flame and flash and impact dials in it to give his attacks more spin or more oomph or power. Okay, so basically just gives like his flame star gets an upgrade to like the Phoenix Flame Star. So pretty imposing weapon there, although against characters like I said that are really strong, it's not going to do much help there. So after he gets sent flying by Kuma, Usopp lands in the Boeing Archipelago, also known as the Stomach Baron. They're a series of islands that are also like a carnivorous Venus flytrap plant sort of thing. So on this island, pretty much everything wants to fucking kill you. Animals, insects, even the plants. So Usopp has to fight for survival. But also, there's a particular place on this island called the Forest of Gluttony. And it's a forest filled with nothing but sweet-smelling food that the Venus flytrap has that there, so that animals will get lured to it and then get eaten by it. So Usopp ends up in this place and ends up eating all this food, and he gets super fucking obese. And so throughout the 2-year time skip, he not only has to try to survive, but also to lose all this weight and get ripped. Luckily, he has somebody to help him out. I think if Usopp just landed there by himself, we would have some more problems. But there is a warrior, a knight kind of character on this island, and his name is Hercules. And he always ends all of his sentence with but he's wearing armor and he's pretty badass, and he's been living on this island for a long ass time. We don't know much about this character. I wish we would get more introspection into him, but we just don't. I love Hercules. But anyway, he teaches Usopp how to fight and also gives him a new weapon in the form of pop greens. On the island, the seeds of these carnivorous plants that all want to eat you can actually be utilized. You can apply, I think, water to them and they'll expand into giant carnivorous plants. So Usopp gets a whole new slew of weapons at his arsenal. He has Trampolia, which is a plant that is a trampoline. He has a boat where he can throw out that on a boat so they can cross the water. Impact Wolf, which is like a bulb in the shape of a wolf, and if the bulb hits you, it releases a huge amount of impact. Green Devil, which is like a giant Venus flytrap that'll consume you. So all these cool techniques he has now that are pretty damn useful, if I say so myself, and they're all used by his new slingshot, the Black Kabuto, which is kind of a plant in and of itself that he invented, taking cues from not only the original Kabuto, but also the plant technology of the plant technology. I'm getting technical. But yeah, so it's a living thing, so he can apply water to it, and it'll actually get bigger, and then he can use the spot where he, I don't know what the fuck this thing is called, this whole, I don't know, the loader, I don't know, but this thing is actually a living plant, and so he can, put water on it, the whole thing gets bigger, and then he can put rubble and debris into this thing, and then draw it back, and then shoot it all like a shotgun, like all the debris shoots out like spread fire. And then, even more so, you can use a technique called Super Grow Up, where it gets really big, bigger than his own body, and he can use it to kind of shoot super long distances. He uses this in Dressrosa when he has to shoot a bullet at Sugar who's miles away across the freaking city in a castle, and he only has a small little window to do it in. At this point, Usopp awakens his haki, his observation haki. Now, Usopp's not in the current arc of the story, so we really haven't gotten much more from him, whether or not he can use this at will or he's trained to use it better, but he does have access to observation hockey, which will make it makes a lot of sense for him because he is the sniper of the group. So yeah, that's pretty much his techniques there. I'm probably losing one or two things out, but that's Usopp to a T. As for battles, honestly, I kind of already covered most of the battles he's been in. He fought against the Black Hack Pirates in his original introduction arc. His first big win was his fight against Chu, a fishman, who, fishmen are like 10 times stronger than humans, and Usopp's just ordinary human. So, but he manages to man up in that fight because, he tries to do his old tricks, like I'm just going to pretend to be dead and tell Luffy and the gang that I tried, but I failed. But he decides that since everybody else is fighting tooth and nail to defeat the fishmen and save Nami, that he would be a piece of shit if he just fake being taken out. I mean, that's horrible. So he gets back up and fights against Chu. He gets punched, he gets pummeled, he gets the shit beat out of him, but Usopp eventually wins, douses him with fucking alcohol, lights him on fucking fire, and that's Usopp, damn it. Manages to do it. And then after that, Chu's he's not out yet, so Usopp just takes his hammer and just like beats him over the fucking head like 30 times and just like, okay, I did it. I win. So way to go, Usopp. That's the first big victory. Next one was Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas fought against, Chopper helped him out there, talked about that. The big moment in that fight was when Usopp, he was about to be taken out, about to lose consciousness, and Mrs. Merry Christmas starts talking shit about Luffy. And then Luffy gets up and he's like, there comes a time in every man's life when they have to stand up for their friend or, something like that, and their friend's dreams are being laughed at. I won't let you mock Luffy. He's our captain. He's gonna be king of the pirates someday, and I will never let that be made. I would never have that be made fun of, and that's when he gets like his second wind in that fight. Let's see, fights against, as I saw, has a brief encounter with Eneru in the in Skypiea, but you know how that ends. In Eni's Lobby, Water 7 fought against Frankie. Eni's Lobby doesn't really fight against anybody. Had a run in with Jabra, but that didn't end well, as I said. Leading up to Thriller Bark with Perona, talked about that. Yeah, so I pretty much talked about all the major fights he's been in, really. Fought against that new Fishman Island guy after the time skip, but that was pretty much just a display to show off all the Straw Hat's new powers, and he just beats the shit out of that guy with Impact Wolf. He's certainly become, it's weird, he's become, at the same time, he's cowardly again, but he's also way more confident after the time skip. It's this weirdest combination of shit. As for the actual place in the story, Usopp, I think, represents a lot of like a normal person. Like, if you were going to be sent into the One Piece universe, let's be honest here, you would be Usopp. You don't have a devil fruit, you're just a normal fucking guy. You would be the Usopp on the crew. But that's not to say that you would be useless, and that's not to say that you would be dragging down everyone else, or you'd be just more of a hindrance. I think that's Usopp's greatest fear. Probably Nami's as well, but at least Nami is also the navigator, so she has a lot of worth, even if she's not a fighter. Usopp, though, he's there to be a marksman, and he doesn't have any other skills, so it's like, I have to be useful to them, and if I'm not useful to them, then I'm worthless, and I'm a detriment, and I cannot have that. My ultimate goal is to become a brave, strong warrior of the sea like my father, and that's what he's aspiring towards to become. So, at the end of the day, Usopp represents kind of us, what we would be in the One Piece universe. A normal guy, but he's never giving up, he's never backing down, and he's trying to always get stronger, despite his faults. And he's doing the best he can, guys. He's doing the best he can. But hey, he has hockey now. He's got this wide array of techniques. He's pretty skilled in manipulation and tactics in his own right. So I wouldn't count him out just yet. He's going to be shown in Wano Kuni, and he might get a pretty cool battle. And hey, he was the one that was responsible for saving all of Dressrosa, taking out Sugar, making her powers become ineffectual, and freeing the entire city from that grip that Doflamingo had on them. And that's how he attained his title of God Usopp. Everyone called him God after that for saving them. And it was all on him. It was that really emotional moment where it's like, okay, Frankie's taken out, everyone else is not able to fight, or they have no chance, and Robin was taken out, so it's just like, it's all on you, Usopp. It's all on you. You can do it. We believe in you. And wait on below, he didn't intend to do it that way, but he managed to come through at the end of the day in the clutch. So way to go, Usopp. Way to go. Oh, this was way over half an hour. I'm sorry, but hey, that's what this is, man. It's what this is. Talking about the Straw Hats. Oh, it's going to be a crazy series. I might have to figure out a way to slim these down a little bit, but I'm always looking for tips and pointers. So thanks everybody for watching. Sorry if I left anything out about his character, about his techniques or battles, probably at one point. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and catch you back here next time where we're going to be talking about... Actually, hold on. Oh man, these were randomly decided. Next video is going to be Brook, the Sogeking. Good. Because I can't go out and buy a poster for every single one of the Straw Hats. But Brook's the way to go. So catch you back here next time. We're talking about the fucking Sogeking. Later, everybody. Signing out.
Oh, the wind carries my name from Sniper Island far away. When I take aim, it's cringy and true. Loo, la, la, loo. Whether you're a man or a mouse, lock on. Oh my god, this song is cringy as fuck. Hey, lock on! No one knows what secrets hide behind these masks and markings. Lulu, lee, la, la, turanga, bonga. Hey, lock on! Sogeking, Sniper King aims true. Wait, is it Sogeking or Sniper King? Oh, what the fuck ever.